We're so glad you're here. If you're new here, a special welcome to you. Thanks for visiting our church. We love meeting new people. We have a table in the back. If you're interested in hearing more about who we are, want to know how to get connected here at Trinity, we'll have a welcome team person back there to say hello. Right now, as a church, on Sunday mornings and in our groups throughout the week, we are studying the Sermon on the Mount, which is in Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7. And this Sermon on the Mount, we would submit, is the most famous and the most impactful sermon, speech, or talk ever given. That's saying something. That's a bold claim. And so if you would turn with us, I'm going to read to you a portion of it. We're just marching through week by week. I'm looking at it paragraph by paragraph. We are in Matthew chapter 6, verses 1 through 4, where Jesus is going to talk about money and giving to the needy. So read this. You don't read this in your mind, not out loud. I'm going to read it to you, and then we'll get into it. Matthew 6, 1 through 4. Beware of practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen by them, for then you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven. Thus, when you give to the needy, sound no trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may be praised by others. Truly, I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. This is the word of the Lord. Now, where this fits into the Sermon on the Mount, now think when you hear Sermon on the Mount, Jesus got up at a point on a mountain and he gave a sermon, and this is the sermon. And this sermon had an intro, a body, and a conclusion. We've talked about the intro, and right now we're in the middle of the body. There was three, in a sense, big points of the body of the sermon. In the past several weeks, we've covered that first point, which is about the moral law, how Jesus took the teachings of the law at the time and clarified them and took them to deeper meaning. Now we're getting into chapter 6, the beginning, the middle of the sermon, which is about not practicing our righteousness before others in order to be seen by them and to get a reward. And so what exactly is going on here? Well, there's three things he's going to talk about with this theme of not practicing our righteousness before others to get the reward from men, but to rest in the reward that God gives us, that he sees us. He sees what you're doing. And getting approval from man doesn't matter at all. You actually don't even need to be seen by man. And he talks about it in three categories: giving, prayer, and fasting. Giving, prayer, and fasting. So that's the next 3 weeks. This week, giving, prayer, and fasting. And so verse 1, you notice he says, beware. He starts it with beware. Interesting. Beware of practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen by them, for then you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven. Jesus is calling to question motives. Your motivation for doing good things. Why do you do the good things that you do? Is it to please and be seen by other people? Or is it to please and be seen by God? You have two options. Paul echoes this in 1 Corinthians 13 in a very poetic way. It's a very famous passage as well. Many weddings have this passage read in it, 1 Corinthians 13. What Paul does is he lists out, you could do great things. You could speak in like the tongues of angels and have eloquent speech. You could have faith that moves mountains. You could give all you have away. He's like, you could give away all your money. He even says you could give your body to be burned. You could die a martyr's death. He literally goes there. He says you could do all that, but if you do it without love in your heart, without a selfless doing it for the other people versus doing it for yourself, he says, you're nothing. He says it's nothing. He even says it's like a noisy gong in a pagan temple. It's annoying. It's annoying. He's getting at the heart of why do you do the things you do. The same thing Jesus is saying here about hypocrites. That you could do great things on the outside, but there will be no reward for it. If it's for you, if it's for your glory, if it's to get your name on something, if it's for your own self-advancement or for your kids or for your whatever unit. Why do you do the things you do? That's where Jesus is going. And he says, beware. I mean, what an interesting thing to say. Like he's saying, beware of good works. Good works are a thing to beware of. Have you ever thought about that? Like, where do you see the word beware? Beware. Like you're walking down a sidewalk and it'll say, beware of dog. Why is that there? There's something dangerous here. He's not saying don't do it. The beware of dog isn't saying you can't walk on this sidewalk. Jesus is not saying don't do your good works and never let anyone see them. Earlier in the sermon, he said, no, let your light shine. Like people need to see your good works. The world needs to see the good things that the church does. He's not saying that people can't see them. He's getting at the heart. Why do you do them? He's saying if you're going to be involved in doing good things, you need to beware. There's something dangerous here. Beware of dog, beware of good works. Practicing your righteous before other people in order to be seen by them. He's saying if you're doing this in order to be seen by other people, beware. You have lost your reward. Charles Haddon Spurgeon had an illustration that he gave, and he said, imagine this. You know, it was a long time ago. He said, imagine this. Imagine there is a king, and he's holding court, and he's got all his nobles and servants and people in the throne room, right? And let's say a gardener comes in to the throne room, and he's brought all of his best produce from the year, and he wants to make a donation. And he's come because in his heart, he loves the king, and he respects the king, and he just wants to come and give a gift to the king. And he goes and he gives the gift to the king, and the king looks at this produce and sees what he's done and the generosity of his heart, and he says, let's make this man the head of all my gardens. Let's say he hires them and he gives them a whole bunch of gardens to manage, and all of a sudden now this gardener has gone from having a little bit to a lot, and now he's got this great role and everything. And then Spurgeon says, imagine that there's a nobleman standing there, and he thinks to himself, oh, that's how this works. And so he's rich and he's wealthy, and so he goes to his stable, and he finds his biggest, finest horse, award-winning horse, and he thinks, oh, here's what I'm going to do. I mean, so the next day he takes this horse into the throne room, and he goes to the king. Says, here you go, king. You can have this horse. And the king looks at him and knows him and sees the look in his eye. And the king says, thank you for the horse. You can go now. And the nobleman's mad. He's angry. He's frustrated. Hey, wait a minute. I thought that I was going to get to be the head of the equestrian. No. You see, the gardener gave me the produce. You gave yourself the horse. So that's all you get. That's your reward. That's where Jesus is going here. You see, a lot of discouragement, I believe a lot of discouragement, a lot of frustration in life, a whole lot of frustration in life can come from motivation. Why are you doing the things that you do? When you do them for yourself, there's so oftentimes frustration. I'm not being seen. I'm not being recognized. Why does that matter so much to you? What is it that you think that will give you? Being seen, being recognized. I remember in college, when I was a freshman, the ministry that I was involved in, they noticed I had a little bit of gifts standing up front and doing things up front. And so freshman year, I'm getting to lead up front in this college ministry that I'm in. And then the next year, sophomore year, junior year, and my minister, he had some wisdom. Senior year, he came to me and he said, hey Mark, I think it's time for you to not be up front all the time. Well, I want you to learn to serve in other ways. Like you can lead the welcome team, you can do other things like discipling other people, all that. I remember being so mad. Like, what? It's my senior year. I need to be up front. I'm so thankful for that experience. I'm so, looking back, that little immature me, I needed that so much. That ministry, that serving is not about being seen, but it was crazy to me how much my heart was affected and how much I had to work through not being up front. And like, why am I serving? Why am I doing the things that I'm doing? Verse 2, look at what he says. Verse 2, thus, when you give to the needy, sound no trumpet before you to be praised by others. They have received their reward. Now notice in this passage the use of the word reward. 3 times he uses the word reward. Now, reward, the word reward shows up a lot in the whole Sermon on the Mount. Here, in this one passage, you see it 3 times. And then in this middle section, like I talked about in the middle of the section that we're in on practicing your righteousness before others, it shows up another 3 times overall, other than just this passage. What's happening? They get no reward. They receive their reward already. The Father who sees in secret will reward you. What's happening? What does this mean? The word reward is just the same word as wage. It's to get paid. It's just to get paid. God is a rewarder. He rewards. He gives rewards. I think people, and I have at times, we struggle with this idea of reward. Wait, what? God rewards? Is that going to cause us to do things for selfish reasons? Well, here's the deal. It's clear in Scripture, yes, God rewards, but he rewards when you're not doing it selfishly. It's counterintuitive. If you're doing it for yourself, you don't get a reward. When you learn to do things selfishly, there's reward. Throughout the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus has used this word reward already. Every time there's a direct connection between something you do for him on earth and something great he will do for you in heaven. God is a God who rewards eternally. He is a God who rewards in heaven. There are rewards coming in heaven. Chapter 5, I'm going to read through several verses. Chapter 5, verse 12. If you're persecuted, he says, rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. If you're persecuted, there's literal rewards in heaven for that. 5:46, for if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Implying there is reward for loving enemies. When you love enemies, there's going to be rewards for that. If you just love those who love you, he says there isn't really rewards for that, because that's easy. Loving enemies, now there is reward for that. 6:5, those who pray to be seen, truly I say to you, they have received their reward in full. 6:16, those who fast to be seen, truly I say to you, they have already received their reward. There's no more reward for them if they're doing it to be seen. Listen to Matthew 16:27. He says, for the Son of Man will come in glory, the glory of his Father, with his angels, and then he will reward each according to his works. He's going to come, when Jesus comes back, he's going to reward each person for their works. Matthew 19:21, you will have treasure in heaven. You will have treasure in heaven. Luke 14:14, you will be blessed, for you shall be repaid. You shall be repaid at the resurrection. Revelation 22:12, this is one of the last things that is said in the Bible. Behold, I am coming quickly, and my what? My reward is with me, to render to every man according to what he has done. Hebrews 11:6, when he's describing the great hall of faith, it's describing the very character of God. It says, for he who comes to God, Ben mentioned a relationship. If you want to have a relationship with God, for he who comes to God, you must believe that he is, and that he is what? A rewarder. That he's a rewarder. And this word means rewarder is someone who pays back wages in return. Jesus is into investing. You guys ever invested before? What do? You take some money, you put it somewhere, hoping to get paid back in the future. Big hope. You hope. But you put some money aside hoping it will grow or be more in the future. Jesus is into investing, and he's very clear. The good things you do for the glory of God, that is an investment in eternity. There will be reward in heaven. And some, just to be clear, some in heaven will be rewarded more than others. I think that's part of the hard part for us. It's kind of like, wait a minute. Shouldn't it be more communist? Like, let's just get to heaven and everybody gets the same amount. That's not what the Bible teaches. There will be different rewards in heaven. Different people will have different amounts. You see this, this is an old thing. I feel like we don't talk about it as much as the old writers did. Augustine, Calvin, Luther, Spurgeon, Jonathan Edwards, they all, in all their writings, it's all over the place if you look for it. Eternal rewards for the things that you do, good and bad. Jonathan Edwards has a sermon called Heaven is a World of Love. It's a whole sermon on heaven. Heaven is a world of love. And in it, he talks about the dynamic of rewards. And one of the things he says is really interesting. He says, there will be no envy in heaven. And that let's say you see someone with greater reward than you in heaven, that you will delight just as much in their reward as your own, even though yours is less. Isn't that fascinating? What a fascinating thought. That you'll look across the room and be like, wow, that person gave way more than me. Look at all the reward they get. I'm so excited for them. And I think that's part of what we need to be receiving now, is like excitement over what people get and don't get and what they give away and how they serve. Verse 2, when he says, thus, when you give to the needy. Now, here specifically, he's talking about giving financially to the poor, giving to those who need it. And the way that he says it, I think, is very important to notice when you give to the needy. He's not saying if you give to the needy. He assumes you give to the needy, to those who need it. You see, the context of giving in this passage, what's happening here with the blowing of the trumpets and the guys wanting to be seen and Jesus calling them hypocrites, here's the context. Back then, they were instructed, the Jewish people were instructed that everybody gives away 10%. What you earn in a year, you take 10% of that and you give it to the temple. And what they would do is they would distribute it. There were three main things this would go to. The priests, the pastors' salaries, the priests' salaries, and their living. So that's where part of it went. To the upkeep of the temple. It was a building, and they had to keep it up, and they had to take care of the grounds and all that kind of stuff. And then they would also, a third of it would go to, not a third of it, but the other third thing was the poor. They would distribute it to the poor, to help the needy. But, people would give 10%, but a lot of people would give beyond 10%. They would give 10% to the temple. That's what they are supposed to do. But then other guys would give beyond 10%. And so these guys, what they were doing is Jesus confronts them later, they weren't really giving 10% to the temple. They were supposed to give 10% in the form of grain, wine, oil, and animals. They didn't have like dollar bills like we have. So the way it worked is if you were lived 50 miles away, you would travel in with your family and you would have a basket and it would be filled with wine, grain, and oil, and you would have some animals with you. And this grain, wine, and oil and animals would represent 10% of what you brought in that year. And you would bring that and you would give it to the temple. You'd actually have a moment where you get down and you worship God with your family before the temple. Your family sees it, your neighbors see it, everybody sees it, and you praise God, and because you're recognizing everything I have is a gift from God. Everything I have, my gifts, my talent, my job, all of it, everything in my bank account, that is actually God's money. It's God's stuff. And to worship him, I'm to recognize that by giving 10% back. So then these guys, what they were doing is they would bring what Jesus accused them of later is, hey guys, you aren't even bringing grain, wine, and oil. You are tithing with mint, dill, and cumin, which is like, it's almost comical. We talked about this several weeks ago, but it's like in Malachi that it's like they went to the spice rack and they were like, here's some mint, some dill, and some cumin. I think I'll give that. You know, it's kind of like they're putting seasoning in the basket, and that's not what they're supposed to be giving. And then they would likely be giving something to the poor, but when they do that, they'd make a huge fanfare of it. They'd blow literal trumpets. They say, here I am, I've come to give to the poor. And it was like they're doing it for themselves. They're doing it to like get their name on the building, which isn't necessarily bad if you have a name on a building. But like if that's your whole motivation, Jesus is not pleased with that. Your reward, that's your reward. A name nobody knows who you are 100 years from now. So that's the context of what's happening. And Jesus is saying, no, guys, like when you give to the poor, it's intended to actually be there to help them. To help them. It's intended to be for the glory of God, for the flourishing of the community, to lift people out of their poverty. Now, we're going to be introducing you guys at the end of the service to one of our missional partners, the Woman of Pader Ministries. We're going to watch a video, and we want you to see it. And when we watch that, I really want you to pay attention to the detail. I watched it twice this week, and just both times, I couldn't hold back tears. Just like looking at the details of what Holly and her ministry are doing for these women to pull them out of poverty and to help them. And we are so excited to be a part of this ministry. And it's something we want to give money out of our budget that we have to it, but we hope that people in our church will see this and get excited about giving your own money to this. You see, yeah, we believe that you should tithe to your church. Some churches will say you should give 10% just to your church and then you give the rest to other things. I don't think there is biblical grounds for that at all, to take one for one temple to local church. But what is clear is, I do think that God is challenging us to give 10%. Now, some of that will go to your church. Some of that should go to the poor. Some of that should go to other ministries. But when in Malachi, as we looked at several weeks ago, what God comes to his people with is, you're robbing me. You're robbing me. That's not yours. I have given that to you. I have given that to you to give back. And why do we do it? One, it guards us against two things. It guards us against, one, greed. Greed. Like, the culture we live in, guys, it's not hard. It's a greedy culture. Like, how many messages and sermons, they're not called sermons, but how many messages do we get every week that you need more to be happy? You need more to be content. You need more things. If you get less things, you're not going to be able to be happy. It guards us against envy. Envy. I mean, I was thinking about this, I struggle with envy every day. I think every day I'm encountered with my envy. I'm just be honest. Every day when I drop my kids off, if I drop my kids off at school or go to the school they go to, I'll just be transparent. I walk away and I have to fight against envy. I see the cars, I see the stuff, I see the things people have in our city, wherever. It's just like I see it, oh, if I had that, then I would be more content and happy. No, it's a lie. It's a lie. It's just a flat out lie. The joy of the Lord is our strength, not having more stuff. And when we embrace Jesus' challenge to give to the poor, to give our money away, it helps, it grows health in our hearts. It grows joy in our hearts. I remember one time I was headed to speak at this retreat several years ago. Before I was married, I was single, and I'm getting on a plane. And as I'm walking through the TSA checkpoint, this was post 9/11, my bag was going through the conveyor belt, you know, and And alarms start going off, and the guy pulls me aside. I'm like, uh-oh, what do I have in my bag? And for Christmas, I had gotten this big buck knife, you know? And so he's like, hey, you can't take this with you. I'm like, oh, man, I just got this. Can I, take it and go hide it somewhere, and I'll get it on the way back, you know? I was going to, put it in a pot or something, in the dirt, and then come back and get it. That's just what went through my mind. And he was like, no, we got to leave it here. So I had to leave it behind. So I go get on the plane. And one of the things they were wanting me to teach on that weekend at this high school retreat was eternal rewards. So I got to go in with this great illustration. Sometimes in life, there's things you cannot take with you. And here is a clear teaching in the Bible. There's so many things in life that we will not take with us past death. Past death, there's so many things we will not take with us. I mean, if you want to get technical, the two things that last forever are people's souls, the Word of God, and I think based on the Sermon on the Mount, things you do for God's glory. That is it. Things you do for God's glory, which when you open that door, that's a lot. Today at lunch, if you can eat food to the glory of God. You can shake a hand for the glory of God. You can say hi for the glory of God. You can give a word of encouragement to someone for the glory of God. But those are the only things that we take with us. We don't take our house. We don't take our car. We don't take our job title. We take things that are eternal. John Wesley was one time given a tour by this wealthy donor to his ministry efforts of his estate and his big mansion that he had. And I don't know all that was involved, but it was like a several-hour tour. And the man turned to John Wesley apparently at the end of the tour and said, well, what do you think? And John Wesley apparently said to him, I think you're going to have a hard time leaving all this behind. With the zinger, man, John Wesley, bringing the heat. Guys, what this passage, I believe, is teaching us is pretty simple. Maturing in faith is being okay with what God sees being enough, not what man sees. He's talking about having a generous heart, but a generous heart that you can give, and you're okay if you're not noticed by others for your giving. It's just that simple, but it's so potent. It's like if you actually gave a large sum away, would you be okay with no one knowing? If you had to do a bunch of work at your house this afternoon and no one noticed, would you be okay with that? If you did some act of service this week for someone, some good thing, and no one notices or says thank you, would you be okay with that? What if you shared the gospel with someone at work and no one ever found out about it? Would you be okay with that? Jesus' encouragement is this: it doesn't matter if people see you, because God sees you. God sees. And he wants you to rest in that. God sees what you're doing, and he's satisfied and he's pleased. So much, though, there's going to be a reward for you. And we don't know how that works, what the reward is. How's that work in heaven? We don't know. But we know enough to know it's coming. Are you okay with just the trust and the faith of resting? God is going to reward. Because, guys, when we come and it's all about us, it just loses, it's selfish. John 20, 30 through 31, I'm going to read this and I'm going to wrap this up. It says, now Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book. But these are written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. Now look at what he's saying. He's saying Jesus did many other signs that aren't written in this book. Many other signs. There's a lot of things Jesus did we don't even know about. I had a seminary prof who did a little analysis of this. He's saying if you took 3 years, Jesus did ministry, signs, wonders, things that he did for people for 3 years. He said, if you took every waking moment, like when he's not asleep but awake, kind of generally how much time that would be, what we have recorded in this book makes up 1%. Only 1%. The many things he did that we don't have written down is 99% of his waking hours. That means there's a whole lot of stories, a whole lot of things Jesus did that are completely forgotten. Jesus was very okay. 99% of his waking hours, just over 3 years, we don't have them. We don't know what he did. Hopefully we'll learn them in heaven. It'll be amazing to hear more. Would you be okay with 99% of your things that you do being forgotten because Jesus was? I think that's fascinating. Guys, I also want to use this opportunity to bring up something. We as a church, the elders have been praying. We have been praying. We've been talking about this with members too. We're going to be talking about this several times until Christmas, that we right now are praying and asking God for and seeking and pursuing a permanent home for Trinity Church. Now, we don't know exactly what that will look like, but we are praying, we are asking, and one of the things that we believe we need to do is raise money. We need to raise more money and build up our bank account so that whatever opportunity God brings along, that we can move on that. And so we are asking our members, and if you're not a member, hey, we're throwing this out to you too, to consider giving a big one-time gift for the end of this year. Now, we're hoping to raise $250,000 by the end of this year, and then another $250,000 by the end of next year, once again, to build up our bank account so that whatever opportunity comes along, we can start to move toward it. Here's some of the reasons behind this. We love this place, and hey, God may have us here longer than we want to be here. We love this place, but we believe that if we had a permanent location that we owned, there's so much more that we could do. There's so much more we could do for our kids, for youth, for serving other ministries, for serving the poor, for doing a lot of different things. Right now, we have to get very creative, and we are doing things. You might be saying, hey, I feel like our church is doing enough with what we have with just this. Why do we need to try to raise all this money? We believe we can just do so much more. Here's the deal. Right now in America, the past 15 years, more pastors have stepped out, more people have left the church, more churches have closed than any other time in our country. Like, the stats are bad. It's bad. But when we look at this, we're like, we're growing. Like, God's blessing us. We're preaching the gospel. We're teaching the word. We're making disciples. We're raising up kids to walk with him for a lifetime. Like, there's things happening here. We want to be a gospel flag planted in the ground in Austin for decades to come, so that when I'm forgotten, when you're forgotten, this church is still here, preaching the gospel, teaching the word, making disciples, equipping ministries to do things. It's something that we believe. Like, we're about to feature a parachurch ministry that I would say, hey, everybody give to this. But at the same time, I'd also say the church, the local church, is God's plan A institution. It's in fact the only institution that will be here at the end of time. Every nation, every school, every organization will come and go. The local church lasts forever. It's the only one. And it's intended to equip, to be here, to equip and to fuel other ministries, other things, to send people out throughout the week to bless the world. Like, there's no other place where you take communion, you get baptized, and you're equipped in the way that you are through the local church. Christianity is always one generation away from extinction. It's always one generation away from extinction. And what will prevent that is the local church thriving. The local church thriving. If there is no local church a generation from now, there is no Christianity. There are no private schools. There are no Christian parachurches. There's nothing else. If the church goes away, what's what we mean when we say God's plan A. Now, yes, you should give to all kind of different things, and I hope you do, and I know you will. But our ask is this: hey, let's invest in the local church. Let's invest in it. So be praying about what God would have your family